Hello, welcome back to the OTB channel. Today we're going to do a distro review on a distro that prior to this week I've never heard of. It's a distro called ExTiX and it runs the Deepen desktop. It has a few special features though. It has a set of tools included with it called the Refractor Tools, which allow you to create a customized respin of the distro. It was recommended to me by one of my viewers, so let's take a look. So, first things first. You'll see in the title of this video, I've got ExTiX, the ultimate Linux system. They're not my words. The ultimate Linux system is how the developer describes ExTiX. In fact, let's just go to the split view to the website and you'll see that statement there. That's a really difficult claim to uphold. And as soon as I saw the ultimate Linux system, I thought, you're destined to fail here because Linux is one of those systems where it's a very personal choice. It's incredibly subjective. And if you're going to claim your system is the ultimate Linux system, you better be able to support that. I suspect the developer has set himself up to fail. But let's not be negative. Let's move down the web page and see what he tells us. ExTiX, I can't say this properly, Deepen 20.1 is the latest. And it's based on Deepen 15.11, and it comes pre-installed with Skype, Spotify, Refractor Snapshot, and a very latest kernel, 5.5 RC3. Okay, it doesn't actually tell us much there about the system itself. So let's click read more and see if it gives us a little bit of extra. Okay. Apparently we can run it from RAM, which is incredibly useful if you have enough RAM and very fast. You have the opportunity to choose your language before you enter Deepen 15.11. Okay, great. The Deepen installer has been replaced with the reborn version of the Deepen installer, which apparently works better in every way, although the developer doesn't say what that actually means. He's got his own custom kernel there by the look of it. Skype and Spotify are pre-installed. You can install Deepen in Virtualbox using the Deepen installer. Apparently you couldn't do that in previous versions. And if you use Rufus, which is a Windows tool, you can create a persistent partition on a USB stick for when you just want to keep a live system. Apparently that only works, though, if you set it up in Uefi mode, but unique. There is no other live version of Deepen 15.11. I don't know about that. I know that you can get a live version of Deepen. I don't know if it's the 15.11 version, but the versions that most of us download are installer-based versions only. So I'll give him that for the time being. What else does he say about this? ExTiX 20.1 is a live build of Deepen 15.11, which is based on Debian Unstable. I'm going to take issue with this because although Deepen was based on Debian Unstable for a while, I'm pretty sure 15.11 is actually based on the previous version of Debian Stable. And the next version, due to be released sometime this month, I believe, is moving on to Buster. So I'm really not sure here. It's not that clear. It's not unstable. It is actually based on Debian Stable. So the ultimate Linux system. He's called the different versions of ExTiX the ultimate Linux system for many years, and he now feels it's justified because everything just works. Right, okay, fine. Refractor Snapshot. Now, this is what I'm particularly interested in. As you know, I've played around doing a respin of Debian, and I'd never heard of these Refractor Tools, but I noticed ExTiX has played around with them as well. And it actually says that whilst running Deepen 20.1 live or from your hard drive, you can use the Refractor Snapshot pre-installed to create your own live installable Deepen or Debian system. A 10-year-old child can do it. Well, that's a bit of a challenge for me. So I can create an installable ISO from the live system, or I can create it from my hard drive. I'm presuming what the developer is telling me there is if I install it to my hard drive, the Refractor Snapshot tool will be installed, and I'll be able to generate an ISO which exactly matches my configuration. Okay, well, we're going to have to give it a go. Refractor Tools, while running ExTiX Deepen 20.1 live or from hard drive, you can use Refractor Snapshot to create your own live installable Deepen system. Right, well, let's have a look and see if this works. So let's see if these bold claims can be justified. You should see Virtualbox in front of you now. I've got it set up as usual with 2 threads of my i5 processor and 8 gig of RAM. Let's just hit start. I'm not exactly sure that I know what to expect from this, so let's see how it goes. I've got it in scaled mode just so you've got as near to full screen as possible. And I have to say, the grub screen isn't the default Deepen one, but I do quite like the fact that I've got a UK English default there. So let me just hit OK. And we're booting up in text mode now. Nothing wrong with that at all. And let's see where we get to. Well, that was quite quick by the look of it. And I'm assuming we're going to boot now into a default Deepen desktop environment at some point. Here we are. Okay. As I said, it's not in proper 1080 full screen mode as yet because the the Virtualbox guest editions aren't installed. I remember this was a problem with the original Deepen install as well. I'm not going to look at the distro now. We're just going to get on and do an installation. The only comment I would make, and this is purely a matter of personal preference, I hate that wallpaper with a vengeance. It's like the Revenge of Teletubbies. But hey, easy enough to fix. Let's just hit the Deepen installer, and apparently it's the improved version that the developer has put into this distro, and wait for something to happen. Well, I've double-clicked on it. I would have expected something to happen by now. I'm not one for double-clicking, and then double-clicking again. But let's try it. Aha, here we go. Okay, so this looks like it's the standard Deepen installer now. So I'll select English. I've read and agreed to Deepen software end-user license agreement. I really don't like a EULA on Linux, but hey-ho, we know this is in Deepen already. And let's just continue. Let's create my normal username, OTB, and put in a password. And hit next. Okay, not quite. It's put me down as Guernsey. I'm actually in London, but that's fine. Next. Let's just go for the simple installation. I've created 64 gigs on here because I want to test that Refractor tool, and I thought I'd give it a little bit more space. But okay, start installation. The following is going to be executed. Great, it's already picked up that we're running in EFI mode. It's going to create a GPT partition table and create a new partition SDA2 as the mount point. So let's continue. And I'll speed this up and add a little bit of music until we actually get this finished. Okay, so Deepen is successfully installed. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the ISO, reboot into the install system and install the guest editions, and we'll come back in just a second. Right, well, I've always said that when things go wrong, I'll keep them in, and things went very wrong. The installation was fine. ExTiX booted. I couldn't install the guest editions. I suspect that was because of ExTiX using the very latest kernel. However, the main problem was the installation kept freezing and kept freezing my Arch system completely, to such an extent that I had to do a hard reboot. So I'm switching over to Debian. I'll do the install and then we'll come back once that's done. Well, after a little bit of a nightmare there, I decided to switch over to Debian and went through the install exactly the same as I'd done in Arch. And the install went just as flawlessly. But once again, once the process was finished, I was unable to install the Virtualbox guest editions. However, luckily, I can actually get a full screen resolution of 1080 on Debian. So far, it hasn't frozen on me. Excuse me. Let's hope that continues. So, as you can see, I'm not running the default wallpaper. Although, if I go to the wallpapers, that awful one is still there. But when I initially booted into this install system, it had the default Deepen wallpaper on it. Now, I don't want to run through Deepen in detail. I've already done that. I'll include a link to my review of Deepen itself in the information at the bottom of this video. But needless to say, I was generally quite impressed. All the settings are in this side panel, and you can click on just about anything, change the themes, change the wallpaper. You have this as your standard menu at the bottom. You can right-click that and set it in, well, this is called fashion mode, where it has a small dock, or you can set it to efficient mode, where you have a standard panel along the bottom. The menu itself, well, it's very grub-like by default. However, up in the top right-hand corner, you can shrink that down to a normal menu. I discovered this last time, and generally speaking, I was quite happy with the default look and feel. Let's just see if we can get something a bit nicer on the install system. How about that? Yeah, I quite like that. It looks quite subtle now. So, what have we got in here that's different? Well, we've got our terminal here, and let's see what kernel is actually running. Okay, 5.5.0 RC3. I suspect that with it running such an up-to-date kernel, this may be one of the problems why the VirtualBox guest editions don't actually install. But no problem. We've also got all the standard software in here. So, we have a file manager, clearly, a screenshot application, a terminal, something called Bootmaker, which allows you to drag an ISO into an interface and make an ISO bootable, a graphics driver manager. I'm not surprised, my hardware isn't supported apparently. In fact, let's just make this bigger again to go through this. And the standard Deepen software, customized software made for the distribution that we found in Deepen itself, including a system monitor. Just out of interest, let's see how much it's actually using. 864 megs of memory. Not exactly lightweight, but nevertheless, not horrific. I wonder if HTOP is included. Let's just open a terminal. There we go. There's the terminal. You can, of course, use standard Debian app commands in a terminal. That's not a problem. And it also has Synaptic installed as a matter of course. So sudo apt install htop. That should only take a minute. And now let's open htop and have a look at what we've got. Okay, now it's only 620 megs. Not exactly what I'd call a lightweight desktop, but it's not dreadful either. So let's just close that out. What else have we got on here? Well, Spotify is installed from the get-go, as is Skype Preview, so obviously a fairly recent version. The Deepen Package Manager, Settings, icon browser, the Refractor installer, but interestingly, the Refractor Snapshot tool, which I was most interested in testing, doesn't seem to be available on the install system, which is, to be honest, a little bit of a disappointment. It did say on the website that I could use the Refractor Snapshot tool from the live system or from the hard drive. I took from the hard drive to mean installed on the hard drive, but that seems not to be the case. I might be wrong. It might just be missing from the menu. Let's just see if... Nope, it's not there. What about if I do sudo refract? No, there's only the Refractor installer there. Where is Refractor? So just to save you some time in the middle of this clip, I looked all over and it seems it's not there. Nope, it's not there on the install system. Okay, so that's answered the question. So we've got our standard Deepen install here, and I have to say it hasn't crashed so far on this Debian system. Let's just have a look at Synaptic. I want to have a look at the software sources that are installed. Or the repository, shall I say. And we can already see it's got the Skype repo installed, it's got the Spotify repo installed, and after that, it's just using the standard Deepen repositories. Okay, well look, I really want to try this Refractor Snapshot. I want to see if it works. I feel a little bit like I've been led astray, because looking at the web page for ExTiX, it looked as if after installing this system I would have access to that tool. Nevertheless, I mean, we have a Deepen desktop here. I am asking the question though, what's the difference between this Deepen desktop and the standard Deepen desktop, apart from the fact that this has Spotify and Skype already installed? Anyway, let's boot up the live system and see what happens. Okay, so we're now back at the live version of ExTiX, not the install version. And you can see in the menu here, we definitely have Refractor Snapshot. So what I want to do with this, I'm assuming it's now going to work from this live system. So let's make a few modifications and see if it'll create an ISO with those modifications carried across. So let me change to efficient mode. Let me change the menu to the smaller one. Okay, all good. Let me change the wallpaper to something different. Let's go for... Oh, I quite like that bird. Let's go for the bird. And let's see if we can install something from the software store. Okay, so let's try installing VLC. Install. I'm presuming these are snaps or flat packs, but I may be wrong. But that installation seems to be happening relatively quickly. And we'll install the GIMP as well. And then we'll see if we can create a snapshot with this refractor tool. So it's installing fine on the live system. VLC successfully installed. So if we go to music, okay, that just takes me to the file manager. If we search for VLC, there we are, Vlc Media Player. What else can we do? Let's put something lightweight. What should we install? Let's go with the GIMP. And hit install. I'll speed this section up slightly. So that's the GIMP successfully installed. So if we now go to our menu, we should see both VLC and the GIMP installed there, and we do indeed. Okay, so now the big test. Let's hit Refractor Snapshot and see what happens. What I'm hoping is it's going to create an ISO, and we will be able to basically produce an ISO with this wallpaper, with all the standard tools, including the GIMP and VLC. Nothing's happening so far. Let's hit it again. Here we go. Create a Uefi enabled snapshot. This utility will create a bootable image that you can burn to CD or DVD or copy to USB. It will be stored in Home Snapshot. Okay, choose the first option to create a snapshot. And we have a number of other options there, which I would have to do some research on, but let's just go with number one and see what happens. This may take a moment while the program checks for free space. I will free this up a little bit, or speed this up a little bit, and we'll see what happens. So, after a number of error messages saying insufficient disk space, I'm now told it's all finished. Okay, well, let me go full screen again, and let's see if we can find it. So, it should have been in Home Snapshots. and it's nowhere to be found. Interesting. Computer. Is it going to be in here anywhere? Aha, hold on. What do we have here? We have by the look of it, just a standard SHA 256 file. How big is that? Nothing. Look, guys, I think this has failed. Let's go and have a chat about it. So, ExTiX 20.1, the ultimate Linux system. Well, I have to say, let's start off with that claim made by the developer. That's a fail. I'm afraid it isn't the ultimate Linux system. What it does do, and it does have some real positives, and I'm not going to blame it at all for the problems I had on Arch, because I think that that's possibly due to Arch's version of VirtualBox at the moment, or rather the one in the AUR. It does give you a nice Deepen system. It does give you the extra packages, Spotify and Skype if you want them. It does give you an up-to-date kernel, and it does allow you to use Deepen Live in live mode. And I quite like the fact that it also allowed me to choose UK English right from the get-go. But why would you install this rather than just Deepen if it's a Deepen desktop that you want? Are those differences that I've just mentioned enough to justify doing that? And I don't personally believe they are. The one thing that really set it apart in my eyes was the Refractor Tools. I was disappointed to see that Refractor Snapshot wasn't on the installed system. When I tried to use it in the live mode, which of course the developer claimed could be done, it didn't work. It didn't produce anything. I'm more than prepared to accept that I may have been doing something wrong, but there's not a huge amount of documentation on the website, and I just followed my nose, and unfortunately we had no success. So ExTiX, please, if you've got any suggestions about what I might have done wrong on the Refractor Snapshot tool, please let me know. I'm sure there are ways round it, but the fact that it doesn't just work out of the box is quite disappointing. So on that note, guys, thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next week.